SWAT team outside. Tylan woke. Tylan rubbed his eyes, confused. Moments later, he and his friends were handcuffed and taken to the Dayton Police Department. Detectives had traced a stolen car to their house, connecting them to a carjacking and a brutal murder. Tylan insisted he was asleep all day, but the detectives weren't buying it. The room felt heavy as they began questioning him about the events of January 26, 2022. Detectives laid out the timeline. At 1 a.m., a carjacking occurred on St. Agnes Road. The victim, a woman, was forced out of her Subaru at gunpoint. The stolen car was found in Tylan's garage. Tylan denied involvement, claiming he was asleep. But detectives pressed him, revealing they had spoken to his friends, who had already confessed. Tylan's story began to unravel. He admitted to being part of the group but insisted he didn't know about any murder. The detectives weren't convinced. They knew the carjacking was just the beginning of a much darker story. Just an hour after the carjacking, gunshots rang out on Fergus Avenue. Officers arrived to find 35-year-old Brandon Cooper dead, shot execution style. The stolen Subaru was linked to both crimes. Detectives believed the same group was responsible. Tylan, Trayvon Mitchell, and their friends Ray and Ron were now suspects in a murder. Tylan tried to distance himself, but the evidence was mounting. The detectives knew they had to piece together what happened between the carjacking and the murder. The clock was ticking, and Tylan's lies were only making things worse. Trayvon Mitchell, Tylan's friend, had already confessed to his role in the carjacking. He told detectives they had planned to steal a car for money. Tylan, however, stuck to his story, claiming he was asleep. But the detectives had evidence. The stolen car in the garage, phone records, and witness statements. They confronted Tylan with Trayvon's confession. Tylan's face fell as he realized his friend had betrayed him. The detectives leaned in, urging him to tell the truth. Tylan hesitated, knowing his life was about to change forever. Detectives revealed that after the first carjacking, the group had booked another ride using Trayvon's phone. This time, the victim was Brandon Cooper. Tylan denied knowing about the second robbery, but the detectives weren't buying it. They knew the group had planned to steal another car, but something had gone terribly wrong. Tylan's story didn't add up, and the detectives were determined to uncover the truth. The room grew tense as they pressed him for details about the second ride. Detectives asked Tylan about the guns. He admitted that Trayvon and Ray had weapons during the first carjacking, but when it came to the second ride, Tylan clammed up. The detectives knew guns were involved in Brandon Cooper's murder, and they needed to know who fired the shots. Tylan's evasiveness only made him look more guilty. The detectives warned him that lying would only make things worse. Tylan's mind raced as he tried to figure out how much they already knew. Detectives revealed that Brandon Cooper had been shot 3 times twice inside the car and once outside. They had found bullet casings both inside and outside the vehicle. Tylan denied firing any shots, but the evidence suggested otherwise. The detectives reenacted the scene, showing how the shots could have been fired. Tylan's story began to crumble as they pointed out inconsistencies. He was trapped, and the detectives knew it. The truth was closing in, and Tylan was running out of options. After the shooting, the group fled the scene. Surveillance footage captured them running back toward Anna Street, where the stolen car was parked. Detectives confronted Tylan with the footage, showing him running with the others. Tylan tried to claim he didn't know what had happened, but the detectives weren't buying it. They knew he was involved, and they were determined to make him admit it. The room grew silent as Tylan realized there was no way out. The SWAT team had raided the house after tracking the stolen car. Tylan and his friends were arrested and taken to the police station. Detectives questioned them one by one, and the stories began to unravel. Tylan's alibi fell apart as his friends confessed. The detectives knew they had their suspects, but they needed a full confession to close the case. Tylan's world was collapsing around him, and there was no escape. Under intense pressure, Tylan finally broke. He admitted to being part of the carjacking but denied involvement in the murder. The detectives weren't satisfied. They knew he was hiding something. Tylan's story didn't match the evidence, and they were determined to get to the bottom of it. The room grew tense as they pressed him for the truth. Tylan's future hung in the balance, as he struggled to decide what to do next. Tylan and Trayvon were tried as adults for aggravated murder, robbery, and other charges. The evidence was overwhelming. Phone records, witness statements, and forensic evidence tied them to the crimes. Tylan pleaded not guilty, but as the trial progressed, the truth became undeniable. The jury heard how the group had planned the robberies and how things had gone horribly wrong. Tylan's fate was sealed as the prosecution laid out their case. The jury returned with a guilty verdict. Tylan was convicted of multiple charges, including murder, and sentenced to 27 years to life in prison. DeTravon received a similar sentence. The courtroom was silent as the judge read the verdict. Tylan's life was over before it had even begun. The weight of his actions hit him as he was led away in handcuffs. Brandon Cooper's family was devastated. His mother spoke in court, describing her son as a kind, hard-working man who had been taken too soon. Tylan and DeTravon's families were also shattered. The community was left reeling from the senseless violence. The case served as a stark reminder of the consequences of poor choices and the devastating impact of crime. In prison, Tylan had time to reflect on his actions. He realized the gravity of what he had done and the pain he had caused. He wrote a letter to Brandon Cooper's family, apologizing for his role in the tragedy. But it was too late. The damage was done, and Tylan would spend the rest of his life paying for his mistakes. Brandon Cooper's legacy lived on through his family and friends. They remembered him as a loving husband, father, and friend who had been taken too soon. The case also left a lasting impact on the community, serving as a cautionary tale about the dangers of crime and the importance of making better choices. Tylan's story was a tragic reminder of how quickly lives can be destroyed by a single bad decision. The case highlighted the importance of early intervention and support for at-risk youth. Tylan and DeTravon's actions were a result of a lack of guidance and opportunities. The community came together to address the root causes of crime, hoping to prevent similar tragedies in the future. Tylan's story became a catalyst for change, inspiring efforts to create a safer, more supportive environment for young people. In prison, Tylan sought redemption. He participated in rehabilitation programs and worked to better himself. He hoped that one day he could make amends for his actions and contribute positively to society. But the road to redemption was long and difficult, and Tylan knew he would never be able to undo the harm he had caused. As Tylan served his sentence, he thought about the future. He dreamed of one day being released and starting over, but he knew it would be a long time before that could happen. In the meantime, he focused on self-improvement and making the most of his time in prison. He hoped that one day he could find forgiveness and redemption. The case had a profound impact on everyone involved. Brandon Cooper's family continued to grieve, while Tylan and DeTravon's families struggled to come to terms with what had happened. The community was left to pick up the pieces and move forward. The tragedy served as a reminder of the importance of making good choices and the devastating consequences of crime. Over time, the community began to heal. Brandon Cooper's family found solace in remembering the good times they had shared with him. Tylan and DeTravon's families also began to heal, though the pain of what had happened would never fully go away. The case served as a reminder of the importance of forgiveness and the power of resilience. Brandon Cooper's family held a memorial in his honor, celebrating his life and the impact he had on those around him. The community came together to support the family and remember the man who had been taken too soon. Tylan, from his prison cell, reflected on the life he had taken and the pain he had caused. He vowed to never forget the lessons he had learned. The case inspired change in the community. Programs were created to support at-risk youth and provide them with opportunities to succeed. Tylan's story became a cautionary tale, reminding young people of the importance of making good choices. The community worked together to create a safer, more supportive environment for everyone. Despite the tragedy, there was hope. Brandon Cooper's family found strength in each other and in the support of the community. Tylan, in prison, found hope in the possibility of redemption. The case served as a reminder that even in the darkest times, there is always hope for a better future. Tylan's journey was far from over. He continued to work on himself, seeking redemption and forgiveness. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, but he was determined to make the most of his second chance. The case had changed him, and he was committed to becoming a better person. Brandon Cooper's legacy continued to inspire those who knew him. His family kept his memory alive, sharing stories of his kindness and generosity. Tylan, in prison, reflected on the life he had taken and the impact it had on so many people. He vowed to honor Brandon's memory by becoming a better person. Tylan continued to seek redemption, participating in programs and working to better himself. He knew he could never undo the harm he had caused, but he was determined to make amends. The case had changed him, and he was committed to living a better life. As Tylan served his sentence, he thought about the future. He dreamed of one day being released and starting over, but he knew it would be a long time before that could happen. In the meantime, he focused on self-improvement and making the most of his time in prison. He hoped that one day he could find forgiveness and redemption. The case continued to have a profound impact on everyone involved. Brandon Cooper's family continued to grieve, while Tylan and DeTravon's families struggled to come to terms with what had happened. The community was left to pick up the pieces and move forward. The tragedy served as a reminder of the importance of making good choices and the devastating consequences of crime. Over time, the community continued to heal. Brandon Cooper's family found solace in remembering the good times they had shared with him. Tylan and DeTravon's families also began to heal, though the pain of what had happened would never fully go away. The case served as a reminder of the importance of forgiveness and the power of resilience. As the years passed, Tylan reflected on his journey. He had made terrible mistakes, but he was determined to learn from them. He sought forgiveness, a better life. Cooper's memory inspired Tylan,